Всем привет! Welcome back to yet another devlog of Brown Crow. Grey Magpie. Wait, that's not it. Oh yeah. For those who are new to the series, Black Raven is an upcoming 2.5D slasher set in medieval Eastern Europe. You play as Ivan, a man seeking revenge on those who destroyed his home, killed his wife, and abducted his son. If you are new to the series, go and watch the previous episodes to catch up to speed. In the last two devlogs, we looked mainly at the introduction into the game, what it will be about, and the beginnings of designing the game, creating the character controller, enemies, and other miscellaneous itty-bitty things. But enough of me yapping about the boring shit. Let's dive into this episode. Okay, so there is quite a bit to unpack in this episode. Immediately, just by looking at the screen right now, you can see a lot has changed since the last two devlogs, but I'm gonna go through every new addition in order. So right after I put out the last devlog, I immediately got into working on some UI, even though I literally said in the last video I was gonna put that off for way later.
I can't do anything with UI or HUD yet, and also I think I'm too lazy right now.
Oof. Anyway, let's have a look-see, shall we? When playing around with the character controller, I noticed it may be confusing to newcomers to guess where Ivan's sword radius can hit to. So I found it genius to implement a new UI crosshair thingy-majiggy and glued it to the center of the screen. I coded in some logic so whenever Ivan walks within distance of an enemy, the reticle will snap to said enemy, indicating the player that this enemy is within reach of Ivan's sword. Dang, that sounds metal as hell.
逃げずにこの𝐑𝐀𝐕𝐄𝐍に近づいてくるのか。近づかなきゃてめえをぶちのめせないんでな。ほほう。では十分近づくがよい。
Sigma.
So yes, we now have a feature that can make it easier to gauge distances between belligerents. I slapped on some sway to the UI purely just for satisfaction and feedback purposes. And if you sprint, the UI will also jitter along to the screen shake. So speaking of UI, I tested a hurt overlay UI image for when Ivan is low on health. The UI overlay will scale in opacity according to Ivan's health, which gives visual indication to the player that Ivan is low on health, I think. And yes, I also slapped some sway and jitter to this UI. Also, speaking of UI, I added some speed lines in the corner of the screen. Whoa, very anime. Ivan now activates Naruto Run whenever Ivan's speed reaches over a certain limit, aka the sprint value, making the speed lines appear. I added this effect in to make Ivan feel more dragged by the wind and make the player feel more of a shift between speed, walking, and sprinting. Also, a bug that I noticed is that when Ivan's hurt overlay gets a bit too dark, the speed lines become more pronounced since they're on a higher level than the hurt overlay. I might actually leave that in as a feature just to show how much more frantic Ivan may be or heightened in sense he is when he's in detrimental health. Also, something I should mention right now is the new attack animation I've implemented on Ivan. Ivan now has 3 unique attacks, with another one on the way. I would like there to be at least 4 different attacks for when the demo is out, and when the game is fully out, I plan to make the player have the ability to learn new attacks, like a skill tree or something. They can learn a new attack which will be bound to a new button or be swapped over from an old or weaker attack. I mean, I don't know, I still have to work out the kinks out with that, but it'll happen in due time. And not to mention, each attack will have corresponding damage inflicted and stamina used, so the unique attacks will be meaningful and players won't just spam the quickest one. While we're on the topic of combat, I wanted to quickly mention that I also included slide screen shake to every connecting swing that Ivan does. This just makes the player feel all the more satisfied to a connecting swing on top of all of the other feedback measures we have in place, like pausing and flashing. Oh, and let's finally talk about the enemies. There's a lot to unravel. Like, first of all, oh my boja, the enemies are now moving.
They're moving now. They're moving now.
Relax. They can move, but they can't attack yet. They're all bark, but no bite. Yet. So yes, to announce the obvious, enemies can now waltz about. Let me explain how I set this up. First off, I added a rigid body and set it to kinematic so they can move about now. Next, I coded their AI logic and how they should operate. Enemies are set to a passive wandering state so they can move around directionless like a couple of dumbasses, but when they see Ivan in range, they switch to a pursuit state and follow Ivan. When they reach Ivan, they leave a little bit of space as to not get up in the player's grill. Then when 2 or more enemies approach Ivan, they spread out and encircle Ivan as to not bunch up like mindless zombies in a COD game. And that's it for now. That's how far I've gone with UI until this point. The enemies do have idle animation states now, but next I gotta start animating their movement so it actually looks like they're walking instead of just sliding around on the ground like an 8-year-old kid in 2010 with his brand new wheelies his parents bought him for Christmas. Hopefully, next vid, the enemies are mostly animated and not frozen like statues. This looks pretty simple, but I came across a multitude of bugs when it came to starting the enemy logic. There was a bug where the enemies would just fucking disappear into thin air like nothing whenever I hit them. And I tried everything to fix it. I tried pausing the enemy's nav mesh and everything else while it was shaking. I tried only shaking the sprite renderer. I tried a lot of different solutions to try and fix this. The issue itself came from the enemy shake script. Whenever Ivan smacked them with his 2009 Big W Hasbro lightsaber. So I just took the entire freaking logic out for enemy shaking, since you can't really see the enemy shake anyway with the new screen shake script on top of that. So there, problem is solved. So with Ivan hitting enemies, I did make 2 new animation states for when enemies are in their blocking state and when they get hit while they're in their blocking state. I haven't really implemented these in yet since I want to wait till I get the rest of the animations and then really start building their health logic, blocking logic, and other things along with their animation controller. Alright, okay. Sorry for edging everyone. Let's finally address the elephant in the room. Flora and fauna.
Oh my goodness. These flowers smell so good.
Yes, we now have so many new lush flora and fauna. We have a multitude of oak-like trees and a smaller variety of pine trees and even a twisting dead tree. On top of all the trees, we now have these ugly looking bush shrub things which I'll probably change. And now we have sunflowers. Oh my goodness, sunflowers. This is a pretty big change, as just in the last 2 devlogs there was nothing to do with flora except grass and wheat, and that was it. With these new trees, since they were using 2D sprite renderers, I had to put artificial shadows under the trees since I wasn't going to use any contact shadows or any sort of light source shadow system. It just would not work with this type of 2.5D game. I chucked some artificial shadows under the enemies as well, and they look pretty good, I must say. So while I'm on the topic of lighting, since I was only using global illumination and artificial shadows, I needed some artificial light as well, more specifically artificial god rays. While I was playing with god rays, I added a sun object in the sky so the rays of light actually make sense coming from a light source.
Wait a minute, that's too bright. That's too bright.
God rays in modern 3D video games typically use volumetric lighting systems to simulate light rays passing through a mass of fog, mist, or smoke. Here are some examples of that. But as you know, this isn't really a 3D game. Everything you see on the screen here right now is a 2D object playing pretend to look like it fits into this 3D environment. That means I can't use traditional means to simulate light and shadows. But that's a good thing. This game is stylized, and if I add too much realism to it, then the game will lose its charm and start to look like an RTX modded Minecraft game. It's also convenient not using these systems since they take a load of PC power to run, and I don't want my game running like Johnny Sin's Fortnite game on his potato spec PC. Bro, how the f does this guy have 2 million subs on YouTube? But yeah, as I was saying, I plan to keep this game technologically simple and running smooth as butter on any system anyone tries to play it with. Besides that, I wanted to look at some bugs that I quickly wanted to point out. If you look at the trees, you can see that they kind of bug out when you rotate them, or walk in front of them, or just walk around them in general. I think this has something to do with the sprite layer sorting algorithm. I'm gonna try and fix this later when I have time to polish the game. But at this moment, this makes the trees look goofy as hell. But trust me, they'll look better when it's all fixed. Alright, that is everything that I've added into this update so far, but here is what I'll be adding into the game in the near future. So some of the pine trees already have colliders attached to them, so I will add colliders on all of the trees' trunks and leave the grass, flowers, and other foliage without any collision, so Ivan can just walk right through them. Speaking of walking through grass, I will add a feature soon where if Ivan moves or sprints through long grass or flowers, there will be particles that fly up from his feet, disturbing the foliage in his path. I'll see if I can make the flowers or grass move away or bend away when 𝐁𝐕 walks through them also, adding yet another layer of realism. And speaking of realism, I want to add a feature where if 𝐁𝐕 accidentally swings his sword too close to a tree, 𝐁𝐕 will actually hit the tree and be stunned for a short second before continuing on. I wanted to add this because I want players to always be on their toes when engaging enemies in a claustrophobic environment, and this actually makes more sense when you consider that 𝐁𝐕 canonically isn't really well skilled in swordsmanship. He kinda just swung that thing around. When I was thinking about adding this feature, I also thought it'd be best to include some sort of sword impact on long grass and flowers as well. If 𝐁𝐕 swings his sword around flowers, he will cut them, and they will produce particles and be pruned to a shorter length. All of these features won't be exclusive to 𝐁𝐕. The enemies will also be able to cut grass and flowers and disturb foliage in their wake, because as you see now, the foliage and grass kinda just exist and don't really interact with the people in the world. So I'll add this in a later update, probably around with the polishing phase. I'm going to focus more on the important groundwork and circle back to the issue again. Now all the flora and fauna you see here right now only scratches the surface of what I want to include in the final product. I also plan to add stones, rocks, petals, boulders, and those sorts of things. Then I also want to add in some more types of flowers, especially relevant ones to the eastern plain like sunflowers and poppies. On top of flowers, I will add more foliage like mushrooms, toadstools, reeds, weeds, and ferns, and more grasses. Now, as a lot of you might not know, this game spans from a warm climate in the summer and slowly shifts into the winter. Since the end of the game will be snowy, I'll add variants of these trees that you see here. The deciduous trees will be mostly dead, with snow being collected on the boughs and branches, but the evergreen trees like these pine trees will stay as they are, apart from the snow that will be built upon them. There is just so much to talk about when it comes to foliage, so I'll only leave you with the basics and would rather wait until the world building is done for you to witness how beautiful the levels will be. By the way, thank you to everyone leaving comments and liking these videos. I'll try my best to reply to each and every comment, and please be sure to subscribe to my channel. At the writing of this script, our channel is now at 75 subs. Oh my goodness. Wow. Thank you so much, guys. I know it's not a lot, but this channel only started like 3 months ago, and I thank everyone who was being supportive. It means a lot and means so much to me in the creation of this game. The Black Raven page is also on Steam, so please go ahead and add it to your wishlist, as more wishlists mean more visibility of the game. If you are interested in getting Black Raven at a discount before it comes out, then check out the Black Raven Kickstarter, which will be launching very soon, around early June. So if you'd like to show support and snag a cheaper copy, press notify me on launch. Hi guys, this is it for this month's update. I can't wait to show you the content that is yet to come, but until then,